A while ago, I got an email from a Best Buy employee saying they really wanted to see me make fun of this system, which is an offer I can't really refuse. So I went onto the marketplace, bought it, and yeah, here it is. Let's check it out. But first, today's video is sponsored by Deepcool and sales that they're having on some of their badass coolers. If you've been in the market for a Deepcool AK620, the cooler that I use in my winter PC, or you're more of an AIO person and have been looking at the Deepcool LT720, now is a great time to get them because their prices are spelunking down to record depths. Get the AK620 from Thursday for $51 or LT720 for $110 using the link in the video description. Thank you Deepcool for sponsoring today's video. This is actually a very interesting system. It may just be a Dell Office PC, but it's not just some OptiPoor. This was a full-blown workstation that's been gamerified. And I've never looked at one of these before, so I'm really excited to check it out. The first hint that we're not just working with a Facebook machine here is they've really leaned into the pretend ventilation on the front. And the reason I say pretend is that there may be a lot of it, but it's still more dense than a Rosa Luxemburg book. Ain't nothing getting through there. Other than that, we've got a bunch of I/O on the front. On the side, it's got some battle scars. I don't think that has anything to do with it being a workstation. I just thought I'd point it out. Also, they covered the whole system in this tape, which I don't entirely understand why, because the tape is basically the same color as the PC underneath. It's all over the place. It's even on the top here. And on the back, we've got a whole lot more I/O. And we even have the option to plug 3 monitors into the system without a dedicated graphics card. Which if that isn't pro, I don't know what is. Oh, and we also get an ooh port for some reason. But putting the workstation-ness of it aside, the seller did gamify it for us. So let's open it up and see how they did that aside from the black tape all over it. Not a whole lot, apparently. They did drop a GTX 1650 in here, which is fine. We should be able to get some 1080p gaming performance out of this system, and they had the decency to stuff it to the brim with RAM. We have 32 gigs of DDR4 in here. But other than maybe an SSD, the rest of the interior looks pretty standard Dell. I love how even with these workstation systems, they think this isn't an abomination of a cooler to drop in here. But it's not all bad. On the bright side, we do have a standard MATX motherboard in here and what looks like a standard ATX power supply. So later in the video, we may be able to upgrade the crap out of this system. But before then, let's see what kind of gaming performance we get for about 550 Canadian drachmi. Now, one of the benefits of this kind of marketplace system is that it usually just has a plain Windows 10 install on it, which means no VD. McAfee doesn't value the seller enough to give them blood money to put their software on the system, which is great. In terms of specs, aside from the 1650 and the 32 gigs of RAM that we've already looked at, the system also has one of the newer Intel quad-core Dark Ages CPUs in it. It's got a 6700 in it, which should be a decent pairing for the 1650 we have in here. Whoa, look at that! We've basically got a perfectly balanced system, at least at 1080p medium settings in Battlefield 5, and it does kind of fluctuate based on what's going on. But with these settings, this is a very playable result. We've got mid 80 frames per second happening. And look at our frame time graph. It's so smooth, you can lick syrup off it. Very nice. It genuinely feels remarkably smooth on this monitor. Let's try a couple other games. Cyberpunk at 1080p low settings is also very playable. We're getting well over 40 frames per second here. I did try briefly 1080p medium and it wasn't going great. With the built-in benchmark, it was quite stuttery, like the frame time graph was all over the place. But here in the game with low settings, which still look good, we're getting a relatively smooth experience. Aside from that, the temperatures and noise are very good on that system. That stupid little cooler is handling the crap out of the 30 watts it has to deal with. Very impressive. When it comes to essentially what this system was designed to do, which is play Fortnite, at 1080p competitive settings, it does it really well. This is a smooth, confident experience, aside from the occasional big stutter, which as far as I understand it is server related, so it's not really the system's fault. Yeah, I'd say if you were a kiddo, you'd be real happy with what's happening here. Whoa, at native 1080p low settings, the System Crusher 9000 is running better than I was expecting. It doesn't look great, but this is very much a usable experience. And then we have the option of using FSR, which I find really funny, that we have to use AMD's technology to help out in video graphics cards. So we can use FSR to drop the render scale to 720p. I think the main difference that makes, aside from a little bit more frame rate, is the reduction in latency. Like you can feel, yeah, it feels way more playable. But with that, let's do some upgradey poos. Now, when it comes to upgrading this system, I have a couple of options. The first is to just drop a faster graphics card in here and take our chances with it developing an abusive relationship with the CPU bottleneck, which I did. I dropped an RTX 3050 in here, and with a game like Battlefield 5, I got more performance than I was expecting, but it's still not great. Luckily, there are non-proprietary parts in this system, which means it should be relatively straightforward for me to upgrade the rest of it. Although this kind of thing has this way of blindsiding you with random proprietary connectors halfway through the upgrade process, but I guess we'll just deal with that when it happens. Yeah, you see, there's our problem. This is the power button cable, which is very much not a standard connector, which means it's going to be pretty annoying to start this system up, but you know, it comes with the territory, I guess. I am also going to have to replace the power supply, which isn't a huge loss because it is just a scrawny 290 watt little baby. But we're having to replace it because it doesn't have standard connectors on it, so we're not going to be able to power the other motherboard with it. Luckily, the power supply itself is a standard shape, so we can easily swap it out. I also love how there are solder points on the motherboard for a standard ATX connector, but they were just like, nah, you know what? No, let's do that instead. Wow, this has a real found in a Shenzhen bin vibe to it. Quality. Hey, some real lowest bidder power delivery going on there. Now, I've decided to be a little bit more modest about the upgrade. It's not like you're going to be dropping a 4090 into that stupid case. Even this feels a bit like dropping nice, freshly harvested organs into a whale carcass you found on the beach. Anyway, we've got our 13400 16 gigs of RGB RAM just to get a bit of bling going, and our low profile RTX 4060 that I've been using a lot lately. And then finally, the motherboard's going to be this lowly Prime H610M because it's one of the only MATX motherboards I just have lying around at the office at the moment. Oh! I'm even going to use the little stock Intel cooler. Now, we have sacrificed RAM quantity, but this is faster RAM, which may help our 13400 get some slightly higher frame rates in Battlefield 5. It's not clicking into place, but that's fine. We'll just screw it down. That is, wow, that is quite the move. They decided to use the standard USB 3 front header connector, but then add this little clip-in thing so that you can't use it with another motherboard. Very good. Can't believe I expected anything else. Oh, yeah, wait, I forgot. We gotta be real animals about this. And after enabling some XMPs in the BIOS, we were ready to try some gaming on our new and improved system. With Battlefield 5 at the same 1080p medium settings as before, we've got a healthy step up in performance with over 200 frames per second. It's feeling really smooth. This is a nice gaming experience. Although, that little stock Intel cooler is struggling its heart out. It's way noisier than the previous configuration was. Now, putting that aside, you don't just upgrade so you can run at the same settings. So let's jump it up to ultra settings at 1080p. Yeah, we're still getting a very good result. It feels really smooth, like buttery smooth. Whoa, that is a big difference. So we've got well over 120 frames per second at low settings 1080p, which I guess that means we've got to crank it up to at least high. Ah, there we go. So even at high settings, we're getting almost 100 frames per second with Cyberpunk. And because we've got some RTX action in here, we don't need to use AMD's charity to get extra frame rates. DLSS quality on with just a little bit, a dab of ray tracing. And this way, we're getting 60 frames per second with our rays being traced at 1080p. Very good. Nice. That is a lot of frame rates happening in Fortnite. These are the same 1080p competitive settings that I was using before, except we're getting way higher frame rates, which gives us some really startling stutters. Those are some pretty serious stutters. Oh damn, 100 frames per second in The Last of Us. That's pretty crazy. This is 1080p low though, so I guess it's not that impressive. Let's see what happens when we change it to high. So we're getting over 60 frames per second at 1080p high settings with The Last of Us. And now it looks all cinematic and beautiful, and the game feels good. Yeah, I mean, it's honestly running very well. Although, in all fairness, The Last of Us isn't as demanding now as it was when it first came out. They did optimize it quite a lot through patching, but still, that's cool. So what did we learn in today's video? Well, if you take all of the hardware out of your case and replace it with better hardware, it'll run faster. And in this case, you get the added benefit of having no working front I/O. But at least no one will steal it, which is nice. And brings me to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And until the next one, bye-bye.